Hi, it's Jen with Astro T Astrology. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about the planetary dignities and debilities. So why do I feel like I want to talk about this today? Well, because on the 27th, we have Mars moving into Libra. So that is a sign of its debility. So if you look at the chart here, it's not how I normally set it up. This is pretty much all the planets in their rulerships, or the houses or the signs that they rule. Some of them do rule double signs, but I didn't have enough, so we'll just discuss that as we go. So anyway, so with Mars moving into Libra, this is going from a sign that is I am. It is about me, it's about what I want, and it's moving into a sign that is about we are. So it's not really that crazy about that. You know, if you say have your, it's not used to this sharing, it's not used to taking others into consideration. Mars is used to just going and taking what it wants and doing what it wants and really not caring about what anyone else says. So now that it's moving into Venus, it has to take that into consideration. Now, these are also things you want to look at in your natal chart. So say you have Mars in Venus, or Mars in Venus, in Libra, in your natal chart, that doesn't necessarily mean something horrible, like you're not going to be able to ever move forward with anything, but you're going to do it in a little bit different way than normal Mars. So you are going to be more apt to take others into consideration. You're more likely to not just kind of act without thinking. So it can be debilitating to an extent because it might hold you back a little bit, but you can use it in an outlet in a different way. So it really also depends on where this falls in your chart. So let's say it's in your 10th house of career, for instance. So if Mars, that's kind of that fighter, that's like that go-getter, that, passionate, and it's in Libra, and that's in your 10th house, it's going to have to fight for justice, maybe. It's going to have to fight for, other people and kind of, so this could be, someone who maybe is a lawyer. So you're fighting, but you're fighting for equal rights. Maybe this is somebody that is someone that fights for, rights for, different races or something like that. Someone that does that for a living, they might have their Mars in Libra because they're fighting for equality, they're fighting for balance, they're fighting for that more Libra type thing. So, that's how it might kind of come out. So just because something is in debility in your chart does not necessarily mean it's bad. So you just, it's just going to be a little bit different than it would normally be. It's not quite as strong. It's just going to have to be used in a little different way. So, all these things, it's great to know what your chart's like, especially when you're younger, because then you can see like, okay, well, this is why I'm having, this kind of potential problem, and this is why I have trouble with this. So for instance, for me, I have the sun in Libra. Now the sun is also one of those that is in its fall in Libra. So I'll get into what all these mean in a little bit. But so the sun is not happy in Libra because the sun is about your vitality, your self-expression, and your ego. But when it's in Libra, it has to again take others into consideration. So it might not be so willing to just put out there, this is me, hear me roar, and you like it or leave it. When you're a sun in Libra, you're always kind of wanting to please people. I know that has been me my entire life. It's you just want to make people happy. You want to be that kind of, the one that, I do HR at work. That's one of the things that I do. One of the hats I wear. It's actually kind of a perfect thing for someone with the sun in, and it's also in my 10th house. So for my career, I am, seeing other people, understanding other people's sides of things, but I'm also having to explain what, um, the management wants. So you're kind of balancing it and getting both sides of it. So that's kind of how that works. So it might be that, I might be a little wishy-washy. Yeah, I'm not great at making decisions on my own, because there's always like, is there something better? Oh, maybe that, is that the right decision? Is that what we want to do? My husband asks, like, where do you want to go eat? Oh, geez, I don't know, because I want to make him happy too. So that's, Libras are all about kind of making others happy. And, when you have the sun in there, you have trouble kind of finding your own dynamicism. So, kind of moving on, Mars is not like that. Mars doesn't care about what others think. And, so it just wants to go. So with it moving in there, you might kind of see that popping up in a mundane kind of level. So let's look at the dignities with its ruler, and then we'll go into exaltation, which is a kind of a different set. So first we have the sun in Leo. Sun is very happy in Leo. That's where it feels at home. Then we have the moon is in Cancer. Feels very at home there. Then we have Mercury in Gemini. We have, but Mercury also rules Virgo. So if you look at this, think of how it's kind of spreading out. So we have, Mercury will rule both of these. So we have the luminaries that start here, and what this is called, and I didn't print it out, and I wish I did. It's called the Thema Mundi. So just Google that, and you can kind of see, pretty much everything that I'm explaining to you. So unfortunately, my Velcro broke off here, so I have to hold this. But so it kind of just spreads out, and so the closest planets are the closest, and they rule the closest here. And then as it spreads out, it gets farther out. So if you are thinking, okay, so why are these the rulers, and who picked these to be the rulers? Well, that's pretty much why. So we have the two luminaries here in, pretty much, starting the summer solstice. We have Cancer and the sun, and then we go out one sign from each. So we have Mercury, which is the closest to the sun, and that rules the sign of Gemini and the sign of Virgo. So then we go out one more, and then we have Libra and Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. And then we go out one more, and this is, if you can see, they're moving further. The next further out planet would be Mars. So Mars rules Aries, and it rules Scorpio. The next planet out we have is Jupiter. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and it rules Pisces. That's the traditional rulerships. That's what I usually use. There are the modern rulerships. When you think about the modern rulerships with Scorpio, Pisces, and Aquarius, I kind of think of that more of a blend. I don't, necessarily think that Pluto rules Scorpio, and that's kind of where it gets its evil connotation from, like, ooh, evil Scorpio. I feel like it's kind of a blend. Very deep, kind of, and the same thing with, Jupiter acts one way when it's in Sagittarius, but then it acts a little different when it's in Pisces. So I picture it with Pisces. It does have that little Neptune-y blend in there, but it's mostly I use the traditional rulers, and that's why I only really have the traditional or the major planets. I have the luminaries and then the personal planets, and I don't really go into the outer ones too much when it comes to this. You especially use this for horary. That's the more minor ones, horary and electional charts. So finally we have the Saturn, which is the farthest away from the luminaries. Now Saturn, we know, is the kind of the gatekeeper. It's the end of the original planets, the original traditional planets, which rules Capricorn and Aquarius. So how do you find its detriment? So the detriment is always in the opposite. you look at Jupiter, for instance, its detriment would be in Gemini. So it kind of goes from there. So the moon in its detriment would be in Scorpio, or the moon in its dignity is going to be, sorry, I'm getting off track. So we're kind of going to ignore the luminaries for this one. So if you have, Venus in Libra, you know that it's in debility when it's in Aries. Same thing is when Venus is here in Taurus, you know it's in its debility when it's in Scorpio. So it's pretty much just the opposite. So it's really easy to find. You don't really have to memorize anything. You really just have to know the rulerships, the basic rulerships, and that you can find where its debilities are. It's just the polar opposite, pretty much. So they're at home, and when they're in their opposite, they're in somebody else's home. And if you look at even at like, Saturn and the benefics. So how do we go about, and then we have peregrine, which I'm not really going to get into, but a peregrine means it's in a sign where it doesn't have dignity, it doesn't have debility, it doesn't have term, it doesn't have face, and it doesn't have exaltation or fall. So if it doesn't have anything, then that means it's peregrine. So it's kind of like take it or leave it. I'm happy here, or I'm not happy here, but I'm fine here. I'm not having any issues. I'm just hanging out. So we're pretty much going to be talking only today about the essential dignities, and again, only the modern rulerships. So, and we talked about why they picked their signs. So again, you want to look up the theme of Monday, and you'll see how it all goes. My cat's moving my notes here. Stop. And then it just kind of goes out from there. So again, we have, coming right out, we have these two, the Mercury flanking the two luminaries because it's the closest, and then, it spreads out from there, and then Saturn is the farthest. So when you say, for instance, you have a visitor. So this is like, I look at this as like exaltation. So, or even, well, all right, we won't get into exaltation yet, but let me give an example of kind of being in a debility. So again, when you're in a debility, for instance, you have to follow the rules of that house. So just like I said about, Mars being in Libra, and then it has to be more we than me. A kind of a funny example that I thought of for that was, my daughter had moved out, and she had been on her own for about a year or so, and then she ended up coming back. And she, now she's back in my home, she got to follow my rules. Well, she's now was used to being on her own, and she didn't want to follow my rules. So, not for nothing, she obviously didn't stay very long, which is good because me and my daughter are like best friends. I love her to death. She's just the greatest human being. But living together, we just didn't gel like after the fact. So that's kind of like when you're in the debility, you have to kind of think of what the other person wants. So I have a couple papers here. So I'm going to talk next about exaltation. So exaltation is not really about when a planet is in its home, but it's almost like it's the honored guest in someone else's home, or say, you're, I heard someone actually explain it like this, and I thought this was great. So say like in England, for instance, you have the king, and he doesn't necessarily make any rules or anything, because that's more of Parliament's job. But he's still there, and he's still, he's exalted there. So he's not really making rules, he's not really making decisions, but he's up on a pedestal. I also think about, like, say you're at a spa. You're in somebody else's place of business, somebody else's house, but they're putting you on a pedestal. They're treating you like gold. So here, I don't know how well you can see it. This is the exaltation chart. So I know I'm getting a little bit of glare here, but I'll just explain it. So the exaltations are where the planet feels like they're being treated. So the moon in its exaltation is in Taurus. So again, the luminaries are going to be next to each other. So the sun in its exaltation is going to be in Aries. So then we flank out a little bit. So I'm just looking at my my little circles here. So then we have Mercury is in its exaltation in Virgo. So it's a double ruler. It is exalted in Virgo, which, you know, it happens. It does rule it, and it's in its exaltation. So I feel like Mars in Virgo is extremely happy. It's not only in its house, but it's like the king of his castle, pretty much. He's just sitting there while everyone else fans him and waits on him and feeds him bonbons and whatnot. So then we have Venus. Venus is in its exaltation in Pisces. And then we have Jupiter in its exaltation in Cancer. And we have Mars in its exaltation in Capricorn, and then we have Saturn in its exaltation, and that is in Libra. So, looking at kind of like a theme here. So, if you think about what it looked like before, think about, you know, it's kind of, you know, going along with a similar theme. So, it's still opposites. We have, and then we have the malefics kind of, you know, in each other's spots, you know, almost, and their rulers. You know, you would think Saturn, you know, in Libra, that doesn't really make sense, but it really, it does. Because, you know, there are, it does give you a barrier. It does give you a foundation for that balance, for that, you know, you think about yoga. It's all about balance, and you have to have a good foundation. You have to, you know, be sure-footed, or you're not going to be able to balance properly. So this is the their exaltations. So their fall is going to be the same, and it's going to be opposite. So the sun in its fall, like I said, is going to be in Venus, because it is opposite of, so it, when the sun is in Aries, it's feeling like it's being treated, that it's like it's the honored guest and everything's revolving around it. And then when it's in Libra, it's not quite so much, because it's kind of keeping that dynamicism down. So it's in its opposite. We have Mercury in its exaltation in Virgo, so that would mean it's in its fall in Pisces. So it's not happy in Pisces. Mercury likes things to be solid, like it likes really having, you know, a concrete knowledge of things, where Pisces is a little more flowy. It's that water sign. It's like, oh, we don't really have boundaries. We don't really have anything. We just kind of go with the flow. You know, Venus is plenty happy there, because beauty can be seen in the eyes of the beholder. So anything can be beautiful. You just have to look at it. And Venus just, you know, is so nice. So when Venus is in its fall, it's in Virgo. Does not, you know, like that precise kind of, you know, by the book type things. So then we have Mars. So Mars in Capricorn is in its exaltation. It's up there, you know, Capricorn is about, you know, career and drive, and, you know, what I want and what I'm going to go for. You can see why Mars would be happy there. That's, you know, a place where it's in its dignity and where it's happy. Or not in it's a dignity, but it's in its exaltation. So it's like, oh, I'm going to use this and get everything I can out of it. So, and then So it really does make sense. And then you see the opposite of that, Mars, in its fall would be in Cancer. Cancers are caring about others' feelings. They take care of people. Mars doesn't want anything to do with that. It wants to do what it wants to do. I don't need to take care of other people. I want to take care of me. I want to move forward for me. And so you can kind of see how that kind of goes along, So the dignities and debilities, again, they aren't going to hurt you. They're not going to be something that is going to stop you. If Mars is in Cancer, you're gonna just be forced to take care of people. So Mars in Cancer, there's action going on, but I have to take care of it. Maybe a nurse during the time of COVID. That seems very like Mars and Cancer, where you have to do it. You're afraid of getting sick. You want to take care of your family, and we had a lot of these nurses that weren't even staying with their families, and they're staying in hotels so they don't bring the illness home to their families. So that is kind of Mars and Cancer. So, well, I have to do this. This is my drive. This is my duty. This is my career. But because I want to help others, so this is what I have to do. So again, it's just going to show up a little bit differently for you in your sign. So again, so let me just get to my notes here. So then we have our face or deacon. So that is, there's 3 per sign. Now here's where I might get you a little confused. We're not going to go into term because that's 5 per sign. So that will just get a little bit confusing. Now for me, so this is like a 3rd type of rulership. It's almost like kind of your spot in the house. So say, your house is Cancer. So when you're thinking about the decans of Cancer, it starts the water signs. So Cancer will start with its own ruler, and in the first 10 degrees, the first decan will be ruled by the moon. The second decan would be the next ruler of the next water sign, so that would be who rules Scorpio, which would be Mars. So the second decan would be Mars. So we have the first would be the moon, then Mars, and then the third is going to be the third, which would be Pisces, and what rules Pisces is Jupiter. So those would be the 3, and so that would be in the 20 to 30 degrees. So let's say, for instance, so again, I'm just going to go back to my chart. So in my chart, I have the sun in the 3rd degree of Libra. So the 3rd degree of Libra is very Libra. So, I'm a very Libra person. So again, that sun is in its debility, but, you have to just kind of work with what you got. If it was so now Libra is an air sign. So what sign comes after? So if we have the sun in Libra, in say the 13th degree, that's going to be in the 2nd decan. So if the first is Libra, what's the next air sign to come after Libra? That would be Aquarius, and then so the 2nd decan ruler would be Saturn. So if you are in the 2nd, you're going to have kind of that flair of Saturn. Now I go by the elemental rulers. It's kind of the more modern rulerships, or the modern decans. You can also go by the Chaldean order, or the Chaldean. I always pronounce it wrong. I think it's Chaldean. So anyway, I have a chart of that. So the Chaldean order, and I know you probably can't see this either because my printouts are so small. But the Chaldean order, it starts from the furthest out and kind of moves its way in, but kind of puts the sun and the moon in a weird spot. So we start with Saturn as the farthest out, so that would be first in its order. Then we have Jupiter, then Mars, Sun, Venus, and so on. So if you are talking about, say, Mars or Aries, for instance, it's going to start with Mars. So what comes after Mars in the Chaldean order would be the sun. So the second decan would be the sun, the third would then be Venus, and then Taurus would then start with Mercury, and then the second decan would be Moon, and then the third would be Saturn, and then we start in Gemini and we go Jupiter, then Mars, then the sun, and it kind of just goes back there. So why is this important? This one I don't use too much in just regular chart readings, but when you're doing horary or you're doing electional charts, this is where you really want to pay attention to this. It's where something's going to show up and where something's going to kind of help out. So, you know, if you have a planet in, you know, it's going to kind of be that blend. I notice it too a lot in tarot. So when you are, say for instance, so you're in Cancer and say you pick the Six of Cups. Six of Cups would be pretty much Scorpio or Mars in Cancer. So that's kind of what that card would represent, because that's in the middle. So we have 2, 3, 4, which would be in the first decan, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 7, 8, or 8, 9, and 10. So that would be the 3 decans. And so that's how you can kind of blend the two. And I know I've been talking about that and how we blend. So again, the first in the face or decan rulership, we have the first 10 degrees is the first, then 10 to 20 would be the second, and then 20 to 30. So, you know, if you're a 23 degree Aries sun, you are Aries with a Leo flare, because that would be the third. Actually, that's not correct. You would be with a Sagittarius flare. So, because the second decan would be Leo. So, you'd be Aries with a little bit of that Sag, like, personality and, you know, love for travel and stuff like that. So, that action that you're taking could be more, you know, learn-based or travel-based. And then we have... so that's the term. And then we have terms or bounds. That's 5. I'm not going to get into that. That's where it gets really confusing. So I think I've probably confused you enough. I hope this all makes sense. But definitely check out where you have things fall in your chart. Don't be scared if you have a lot of things in fall. We're actually going to be doing I'm going to be doing a series of videos that have serial killers charts, and you'll see that some of their charts have so many planets in dignity, and you're like, how did they turn out this way? Well, it just depends how you use it. So again, check your chart out. If you need one, contact me, astrotastrology@gmail.com, and we will get into the weekly forecast starring this Mars moving into its detriment in Libra, and we'll do that on Sunday. So I'll see you then. Make sure you hit that notification bell and make sure you subscribe. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.